Right? Simple, effective storytelling invokes an emotional response. Me, we, now. Now, I want to break down these stories real quick. Let's break down their stories using the structure. Let's go with Imam Johari first. Once upon a time. What did he say? Give me, John. Once upon a time.
Child was born down in the south.
And every day?
She had to deal with the challenges being a young black woman in Jim Crow South and
All right.
trying to reach her dreams.
What was the pivot? Until one day. Dun, dun,
Got
dun.
on that bus.
Say it again?
In New York, she got on that bus.
And because of this,
She went to Howard University.
and because of that,
She got married and had a son.
She was educated.
she was educated, married, had a son. All right. And ever since that day,
You can hear it, Brother Gerard.
all right. So that's good.
And finding a
Because-
way to give.
Well, there's two narratives that came out. It's the story of his mother.
Right.
That's the, if you will, the Obi-Wan Anakin. Now we have the young Jedi. Tell me the story of the young Jedi that came out as a result of that story. Once upon a time.
Imam Johari had a mother
All right.
Born in
who was modeled for him, who guided him, and who instilled in him his values of service.
And every day, Imam Johari with his mother did what? What happened? Give me some
take the
detail.
milk
Take that
delivery.
milk across it.
Until wait. One day, there's a pivot point.
Oh yeah, the food was good.
All right. Until one day, what was the pivot point? There was a very stark pivot point in his story that gave him an epiphany, aha moment. Anyone know what it was?
And he looked in the eyes of those children and saw.
He's
how
looked in the
happy-
eyes. So he's like, oh, I gotta give this milk every day. Until one day, emotional connection. Because of this, what happened?
He dedicated his life to giving.
You missed a step.
Oh.
Because of this, what happened? Until one day, saw in their eyes, saw what happened, had emotional connection. Because of this, what happened as a result of the emotional connection?
Changed.
He wanted to
Change. Found his purpose.
Yes.
And because of that, what happened once he got his purpose? And ever since that day, he did his life. It's an interesting breakdown. I don't think Imam Johari even meant to do it. But
I
it's-
meant to do it.
Oh, you meant to do it. Never mind. There you go. Never mind. You got it.
Layered, layered.
Layered. It's layered, though, right? What's the moral of his story? What do you think was the moral of his story? Why? Look, it's very interesting how people. I'm always fascinated by, like, you have 7 minutes, and people have lived, mashallah, we've all lived many years, right? We have, we got mileage. Most of us here, except you, Ryan. One day, inshallah. A lot of mileage. And no one forced him to say anything. No one put a gun to his head. He had free reign, I think, for 7 minutes. And he decided to come up here, and with his 7 minutes, he made the conscious choice to share that story with you. When someone asks you, hey man, what's your story? You have a conscious choice to tell a narrative, and you choose the details. And I'm always fascinated by the details people choose to put in or to omit. Why do you think Imam Johari, with his 7 minutes, chose those details?
Because it relates to why we, many of us, are here at this moment.
Explain.
I come here because I seek to serve, because of a similar story to his, and recognize that pretty much everything in my life, 70-some years, actually has been a part of teaching me to do that. And in listening to his story, I connected. In listening to Brother Amir's story, I connected. And see now the importance of not only being able to help, but how to tell the story to get others engaged to help. Because that's been the problem. One person helping a few until more people are able to connect and help them.
I love it. Give me, yes, John, go for it.
I think also there's 3 underlying narratives, like these overarching stories that we all kind of as Americans learn. And so Imam Johari connected this. He didn't overtly say it, but where his mother was born. Well, he said Jim Crow. So even though some of us, we have pioneers and so in our community here,
Jim Crow is the detail that stuck out.
correct, it stuck out. Some people may personally experience it, and some of us learn that was a time of our history, a blemish in our history as Americans. But it was a personal story of how to overcome, which is a whole other narrative in America, where through gumption, struggle, everyone can rise up and can overcome that adversity. But then I think the third part, which is also important, that most Americans like to want to believe is, even those who can get out of adversity still will return and be a benefit to those and help those to come up. So there's kind of like this, so everyone can connect those narratives, that these kind of overall, these tropes in American history that we all kind of believe, whether how much true it is not, that we can overcome these adversities, people can gain, and then people also are very giving. Americans are very giving.
It's not a Disney story. He's giving it to you real. There's challenges. It still kind of sucks. He gets a lot of you know what from people. It's a thankless role, but he still does it. And just spit it out. What's the iconic images or words that came out from a story?
Mother's milk.
Milk. What else?
Delivery.
Huh? Delivery. That's all you needed. You break down 7 minutes, you get Jim Crow, bus, education, milk, delivery, kids. 8 words. And it conveys a moral. Sometimes in life we don't have the time. You don't have 4 hours to tell your narrative. You got 800 words in an op-ed, you got maybe 7 to 10 minutes on stage, and you got to make it work. You have to be very judicious about the words and images and metaphors you use for that moral. Milk. Stuck in my head. We got 5 minutes left before Maghrib real quick. I want to break down Brother Amir's story. Brother Amir's story was like jazz to me. He goes through a structure, then he has like a philosophical thought, then he comes back. Everyone has their own unique style. It's all good. Break down Brother Amir's story for me. Someone do it. You can give details if you guys have forgotten. Once upon a time. Anyone?
Once upon a time.
I didn't hear the whole story, but I probably know.
He was working at a job making, he said, get the amount, but it wasn't much, and he had a lot of.
And what was his routine?
Selling his papers and bean pies.
The hustle.
Oh.
The bean pie, and the paper,
But it wasn't a whole lot of money.
and some other stuff.
But
Not a
I think he
lot.
also said his father taught him to seize opportunities.
Right.
And he parlayed what he knew how to do into what.
Well, what was the turning point for him? What turned in the story?
When someone tried to take a play.
Would you say that's a turn?
That was one term, but I don't think that was.
There could be multiple turns. What were the turns?
Figuring out that people would respect him for being a businessman. So the Moses part stood out to me, where he was like, yeah, I'm just kind of I'm just kind of figuring out. And then all of a sudden all these people who he saw controlling things were looking at him as like the business guy that knew what he was doing.
He's like, oh,
I can do it.
I can do this.
Yeah.
And what happened as a result of this epiphany? That because of this and because of that?
He starts his own business and moves on his own.
Starts his own business, but what he also does, he realizes he's a good storyteller. And he realizes, oh, the stories of Musa and the stories of the prophets inspire me directly in the very mundane activities that I'm doing, and I'm getting respected because of this. And oh, now I make money, or can make money and get some izzat and some respect by telling other people's stories and the stories of the community. So it's a very interesting pivot. You share your own story, you don't think much about your own story. As you're doing your story, you're inspired by the stories of the prophets where you get the morals. You're doing the hustle, the business, you're trying to make a living. One thing leads to another, you get izzat and respect while doing the hustle. But then you can translate those skills into doing something which is far more, I think, beneficial culturally and spiritually for American Muslim communities. So that was us dissecting the stories. Any feedback you have for their stories? How could they improve the stories? The last thing I'll say. This is just to humble all of us. What's some feedback? What would you like to have heard? What do you think they did well? Positive or critical? Go for it. And by the way, this should be happening to you tomorrow on Sunday also. Safe space. The goal is to make you guys the creme de la creme by the end of the weekend. What was something that was like that really stuck out? Like, applause, critique, anything.
I
As an
would say
audience.
the tone.
The tone. What about it?
I guess the variation in the tone. You could feel in both scenarios, you could feel the passion
Mm-hmm.
You can feel the passion. Passion's key.
Communication, words are only a certain part of the communication. It's the body language. And Imam Johari is, how much inflection, how much he puts into his words and how he pulls back and softens it and highlights in tone is what you're getting at, I think, yes.
How about authenticity? We're both authentic?
Absolutely.
Do you believe there was fraud in any of them? Sincere? How much does that sincerity mean to you as an audience?
Everything. Soul's a story.
That's
Soul
the
story.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what else I noticed, and I don't know if this was intended on your part, Amir, but when Imam Johari told his story was firmly rooted in mother who nurtured him and guided him in the 7 minutes that he presented. And he never moved from that podium the whole time when he was sharing his story with us for that brief moment. Amir mentioned to us how he felt neglected either earlier or whatever with the children and where he was in line, and how he was not, he didn't feel himself to be nurtured, and he did more walking around
Fascinating.
as he presented what he wanted to share with us.
That's a psychological breakdown. That's and they're sitting down on the chairs.
I didn't move because I was, I usually move around just as a style of presenting,
Right.
but I was periscoping, and so I had to stay in the frame of the periscope, which at times, I don't know if you're I'm leaving and I gotta come back over because I can see I'm not in the screen. But it is an excellent device to relate to the audience, to be able to look at them, and to be able to move in the space. Definitely.
If I may, I've learned this a little bit. It might have been Johari, I heard somebody say, I heard him speak, he said, boy, these African Americans, man, they hard to follow. The energy and the rhythm. And you know, they say that we are a society of visual. You see things visual. And I've learned that, and Indo-Pac people got it also. They use their hand a little bit different.
We do this.
So
And the power head.
I've added that to myself, expression and movement, and now it's like second nature, but the drama, to create drama.
The walking is what I picked
And the
up
walking,
with
and
it.
you'll
It wasn't
see-
a hand movement
Because I might have been walking at the time.
And
but
even,
you
and
see
even
me
his
sitting.
knowledge of the periscoping, he was able to stay within that box.
It's authentic to both,
Yeah.
right?
Right,
Some
right,
people-
right. It's authentic
Some
to
people
both.
are hand movers, some people are neck movers, some people are stationary. It's good to master all of them, but it's best to be authentic, in my opinion. And when people say you have to do just one thing, I always say, that's nonsense to me. Authenticity sells, in my opinion.
Every day.
Over anything. You can be rough and authentic and passionate, will always win over someone who's polished and slick. Yes,
I was
sister?
just gonna say about Amir, and I've heard him speak many times. Amir is very organic and kind of spontaneous. And I think it works very well because we're watching something happen within you as you speak. But then from a critical point of view, I just think it, as you speak more, maybe to take this focus and stay on time. Somehow be able to wrap it up in a succinct point of time. But I really like that you speak in a very organic way, like it's happening, that you're experiencing yourself, sharing your story. And I think that's very
It's like a
powerful.
Coltrane soul.
I was ready to say, I
What's
like to
that
see,
jazz?
I was seeing Brother Amir speak a lot, you know. He in that music frame, yeah, he's jazzy.
Yeah.
You know, he's in that jazz frame. Brother Johari, he's more like a symphony. Symphony. You know, and he plays the story out, you know, like the brother was saying, he gets to a little rough, then he softens it up for you so you can get it and understand it. Brother man, you know, he's a little sharp sometimes, but you know, he gets his point across.
Jazzy, a jazzy
He's that
symphony.
jazz. You know, like what's his name? Not Coltrane.
Bird,
No.
Miles.
Oh, you go for
Miles a little too rough.
Arnett Coleman.
But
Yes, sir.
they all, in different ways,
His name is
utilize techniques that are very much also prevalent in the, the prophetic black church. And a lot of that overlays into our experience to the Muslim community. But, and I should, we have these two people, but we also have to include, you weren't here when Ryan
I
spoke.
got towards the tail end.
Yeah, but things are such like where both the mayor utilize it, Brother Ryan, they pause for opportunities, they actually solicit a response from you. If you, they know that they've included aspects in their own story that they know that many of us can relate to somehow and want to bear witness back to them, which keeps you engaged in the conversation. Ryan deployed
What
techniques.
keeps the audience engaged?
Correct, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying,
yeah,
the
yeah.
audience, he deployed where important issues, he's repeated twice in rapid fire. It's just helped us remember, because he's highlighting. So it's just little techniques, and when they speak, along with Imam Johari, like you said, yes, his rising and lowering his tone on important issues of emphasis. And these are all characteristic of a lot of things that we learned growing up in, quite often in the church.
And last thing I'll say before, I think Imam Sab had his hand up, or no?
Yeah.
Last thing I'll say is, never underestimate the power of audience engagement. Even when giving keynotes, even in front of 1,000 people, call and response. I mean, alhamdulillah, I've been lucky enough to address hundreds, very polished, boring people. Anytime you do call and response in a sincere way,
Oh, yeah.
automatically. They liven up, they pay attention, they respect you more. Oh, he's actually talking to me. He's not talking down to me. Imam Sab.